I met Cleto in January of 1977 when my family moved from Brooklyn to Las Vegas. Cleto lived across the street from us.
The world of late-night television is a machine that never stops. The lights, the laughter, the show must always go on. But one night in November, the machine ground to a halt. An episode of Jimmy Kimmel Live was canceled at the last minute with only a vague mention of a personal matter. On social media, fans were confused, speculating wildly. What could be so serious that it would shut down one of the biggest productions in Hollywood? The truth was a story of a lifelong friendship, a silent, desperate battle, and a tragedy that was unfolding in real time, hidden from the public eye. This is the untold story of Cleto Escobedo III, a man whose life was a symphony of talent, loyalty, and dreams, and whose final notes came far too soon. Before the glittering stages and national fame, there was just Las Vegas in the 1970s. It was a city of spectacle and grit, and in the middle of it all were two young boys, Cleto Escobedo and Jimmy Kimmel. Their friendship wasn't just casual, it was foundational, forged in the kind of childhood adventures that seem impossible in hindsight. Kimmel has often spoken about their first major collaboration, a bicycle with a homemade sidecar they dubbed the Side Hack. It was their chariot of chaos. Cleto, ever the confident driver, would navigate the suburban streets with Kimmel as his passenger, their shared goal being to create as much mischief as possible. They weren't just riding a bike. They were testing the limits of physics and their parents' patience, crashing into bushes and garbage cans with gleeful abandon. This wasn't just a funny anecdote. It was the beginning of a partnership built on a unique and unspoken trust. A willingness to follow each other into any crazy situation, a theme that would define their entire lives. While Kimmel was discovering his comedic voice, Cleto was mastering a different language altogether: music. He wasn't just a good musician, he was a prodigy. With a saxophone in his hands, he could channel pure emotion, a talent that was undeniable even from a young age. This wasn't a hobby, it was a calling. His skill became his passport to the world, taking him far beyond the sun-scorched streets of Vegas. He soon found himself on tour buses and in sold-out arenas, playing for some of the biggest names in the music industry. Imagine the sheer energy of being on stage with Paula Abdul at the absolute peak of her straight-up fame, his saxophone cutting through the roar of tens of thousands of screaming fans. Then, his journey took him into the passionate world of Latin music, touring with the legendary Marc Anthony. Cleto's versatility was on full display, adapting his style to the soulful, rhythmic beats that made Anthony a global superstar. But perhaps the greatest honor of his pre-television career was playing with the iconic Earth, Wind and Fire. This wasn't just a pop gig, this was joining a pantheon of musical gods. To hold his own amongst their complex arrangements and virtuosic talent was the ultimate validation of his skill. He wasn't just a background player, he was a respected peer among legends. But the life of a touring musician is a relentless grind of sleepless nights and endless highways. A life that Cleto embraced but would eventually trade for a dream he and Kimmel had nurtured since they were kids. That dream finally took shape in 2003, when Jimmy Kimmel was handed the keys to his own late-night kingdom. The pressure was immense. He was an unknown quantity, entering a battlefield dominated by giants like Leno and Letterman. He knew he needed an edge, an authentic chemistry that couldn't be faked. And for his house band leader, there was never any other choice. He needed his side hack partner. He needed Cleto. In a move that would define the warm, familial spirit of his show, Kimmel asked his childhood best friend to lead the band, which they aptly named Cleto and the Cletones. For Cleto, it was the culmination of everything he had worked for. But the dream wasn't just his own. In a gesture of profound love and respect, Cleto did something extraordinary. He invited his own father, Cleto Escobedo Jr., a talented musician who had put his own dreams on hold to work a steady job and raise his family, to join the band. Night after night, on national television, 3 generations of musical talent were represented on one stage. The legacy of his father and the promise of his own legacy, all made possible by a friendship that started with a busted bicycle. For nearly 2 decades, Cleto and the Cletones were the vibrant heartbeat of Jimmy Kimmel Live. They were more than just a band playing songs to and from commercial breaks. They were integral to the comedy, the interviews, and the entire atmosphere of the show. Cleto's warm smile and effortless cool became a familiar comfort to millions of viewers. He was the steady presence Kimmel could always turn to for a laugh or a musical cue. But behind that smile, a storm was gathering, one that would soon bring the entire production to its knees. The abrupt cancellation on November the 6th was the first public sign that something was terribly wrong. While the world was left to guess, Kimmel was living a nightmare, torn between the demands of his show and his desperate need to be by his oldest friend's side in the hospital. The laughter had stopped, replaced by a tense and fearful silence. The official cause of death was never publicly announced, leaving a void for speculation. However, whispers grew louder that Cleto had been courageously fighting complications from a liver transplant. Suddenly, his unwavering professionalism on the show was cast in a new, heroic light. The man who had shown up every single night, radiating joy and energy, had been waging a silent, life-or-death battle away from the cameras. He chose to bear this immense burden in private, protecting his family from the prying eyes of the public and refusing to let his personal struggle interfere with the joy he brought to others. His strength was not just in his music, but in his incredible resilience in the face of unimaginable adversity. When the fight was over and the heartbreaking news became official, Jimmy Kimmel shared his grief with the world through a raw, emotional tribute on Instagram. "We lost a great friend, father, son, musician, and man," he wrote, the words heavy with the weight of a lifetime of memories. "Cleto and I have been inseparable since I was 9 years old. The fact that we got to work together every day is a dream neither of us could ever have imagined would come true." This wasn't a press release. It was a eulogy from a heartbroken brother. He described their shared journey as a dream, a fragile, beautiful thing they had built together against all odds. Kimmel's public display of vulnerability revealed the profound depth of their bond, allowing the world to see the real human tragedy behind the loss of a television personality. Cleto's legacy is far greater than his role on a TV show. He was a devoted husband and a father whose loss left an irreparable hole in the fabric of his family. He was a mentor to countless musicians in the Las Vegas community, a living example that a local kid could share the stage with global icons. His presence on the show was a constant source of warmth. He was the anchor, the cool counterpoint to Kimmel's comedic chaos. His absence left a void that could never be truly filled, a silence in the studio that was more deafening than any applause. The questions surrounding his final days may never be fully answered, adding a layer of tragic mystery to his story. But the lack of answers only underscores the shocking suddenness of his departure. Returning to the air without Cleto was one of the most difficult things Kimmel ever had to do. The first show back was a somber affair. The empty space where Cleto used to stand was a palpable presence. The usual upbeat energy was replaced by a respectful, mournful tone. It was a masterclass in grieving on a public stage, as Kimmel used his platform not for jokes, but to celebrate the life of his friend, sharing stories and clips that showcased Cleto's talent and infectious spirit. The show did go on, but it was forever changed, carrying the poignant memory of the man who had been its soul for so long. At just 59 years old, Cleto Escobedo III was gone. His story is a powerful reminder that behind every public smile, there can be a private struggle. It's a story of a friendship so strong it could withstand the pressures of time and fame, and a dream so bold it brought two kids from Las Vegas to the pinnacle of show business. He was the man behind the music, the loyal friend behind the celebrity, the quiet hero fighting a battle no one could see. His saxophone is now silent, and his chair on the stage is empty, but the echo of his life, a symphony of laughter, loyalty, and love, plays on.